good to see you. Tawnie here with Tawnie Talks. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and welcome to today's Tawnie Talks. I'm so happy you're here hanging out with me. Let's go ahead and jump into our fishbowl of questions so we can help somebody today. Today's question says, Dear Tawnie, my child did not get invited to a birthday party and I'm friends with the mom. How do I help my child feel better about this and help my own hurt feelings? What a great question, and I'm sure a question that some of us parents have asked ourselves at one point or another. What do you do when your sweet child does not get invited to a birthday party, but you happen to be friends with the mom? Well, you're probably gonna feel a little bit like this. Not my child. I know you didn't leave my child out. And I thought we were friends. Well, I guess we're not going to be friends any longer. So that's one way of reacting to that. But I also want to acknowledge there that it's okay for us to feel hurt as well, because when we see our child feel hurt, we're going to feel hurt too. And that mama bear instinct might kick in, and you might want to be super defensive over your child and want to cradle their feelings. And I completely understand that. But at this point, I want you to check yourself, steady yourself, and really practice those critical thinking skills for yourself and for your child so that you can model to your child how to gracefully approach and deal with feelings like this when you're feeling left out and rejected, okay? Because that's what they're gonna feel. So the first tip I have for you in handling this situation is empathizing and acknowledging your child's and your feelings. So acknowledge the fact that your child's gonna feel hurt, disappointed, sad, left out, maybe even angry. And so really get down to their level and say, I understand not being invited to this party makes you feel this way. So empathize with their feelings, and at the same time, empathize with your own innermost feelings too. Secondly, I want you to point out to your child that if they got invited to everything, they would have no time for their own things that they want to do. So whether it be reading a new book or learning a new skill or learning a new amazing way to create art, they wouldn't have time for themselves to expand upon their wants and interests. So explain to them that it would be impossible to go to everything because then we wouldn't have any time for ourselves. My next tip that I want to help you with is after you explain to them that it's impossible to be invited to everything because we would not have any time for ourselves, is that even they don't get invited everybody they want to. So as adults, we need to explain to our kids that we want to invite a lot of people, but sometimes it's just not possible for whatever reason. Maybe it's financial reasons, time reasons, the venue doesn't accept this amount of people, or maybe you don't really even like this person. And so you really want to be authentic to yourself and not extend the invite. And that's okay too. At least you're being authentic. So explain to your child that sometimes it's impossible to invite everybody, and that someone on the other side of things might feel like they're not being invited to one of your child's events too. And so how would you want that person to feel? And so I think it's really important going to this that we don't jump to conclusions. I know it's going to be an automatic feeling. No one likes to be left out of an invite and hear it secondhand that they didn't get invited to something, but really steady yourselves here, empathize and acknowledge your feelings, really get comfortable with feeling that way, understand that you couldn't get invited to everything because you'd have no time for yourself, and then understand that you can't invite everybody you want to invite into your own events sometimes. And so being really realistic and pragmatic about this approach and really just neutralizing any extreme emotions we have about this would really be beneficial to dealing with not being invited to something or feeling rejected about something. Now, the second part of this is the question did mention that this person was also friends with the mother. And so this is a tricky area right here. So at this point, you're going to have to think about it critically, and you're going to have to ask yourself, am I close enough with this person that I feel comfortable asking an explorative questions? We want to ask explorative questions, right? We don't want to ask questions that are just yes or no, but I was curious if you just didn't get a chance to invite this person. I was curious if you didn't have enough room. I wanted to know why my child was not invited. So you need to gauge here how close you are to this person. Are you close enough to even have this conversation? Do you think this person even likes you, or do you really like this person? So explore how close the friendship is. So based upon your diagnosis of how close you are to this person, then you can go two ways here. You can have a sit down or a text or a phone call conversation with this person and ask why your child was not invited, and come about it in a very kind, gentle, not bulldozing, judgmental way, and just more out of curiosity. So here's what we want to ask our explorative questions. I was curious as to why my child wasn't invited. I know that we're friends. Was it an oversight? Because that other person, especially if they are your friend, they're going to know why they didn't invite your child, okay? So maybe there's something deeper there that you want to explore. The other way that you can go with this is just to leave it alone. For whatever reason, your child was not invited. It could be finances, it could be some other reason, but you know what? You're still valuing this friendship with this person. They still provide friendship value and camaraderie with you. So you're going to just give it a pass and overlook it and continue to be friends with this person, okay? And so there are two ways that you can do based on how close you feel your friendship is with this person. So those are the two ways you can approach it. You can have a sit down conversation and really ask the questions if you want to, or you can choose to just let it go and maybe this was a one-off and it's not going to happen again. Or maybe their child doesn't really feel that close to your child. And so even though as mothers, we want to invite all of our friends and their kids, maybe our kids don't really feel that close to their kids and vice versa. And so in that circumstance, by no means should we force our kid to invite somebody they don't feel connected to or even want at their party just for our sake so that we can preserve our friendship, right? And so these are some things to keep in mind when our child is not invited to another friend's child's birthday party. And so I want you to keep an open mind about this. There's lots of reasons we might not know about, we may not even care to know about why our child is not invited. But the key focus here is acknowledging your child's feelings of hurt, sadness, rejection, disappointment, empathizing with them, letting them know that even if they got invited to everything they wanted to, they'd have no time for their own activities, and that sometimes they can't invite everybody that they want to. And so somebody else might be feeling left out by your child's choices as well. And then really explore within ourselves how we feel about this. Is this a conversation that we want to have with this person based on how close we feel to this friend? Or is it someone that you can just give a pass to and realize that maybe their child doesn't really like your child and your friend doesn't want to say that? And so she did not just invite your child, but she's still wonderful and a great friend to you. So you can go ahead and go down that road too. So these are my tips on how to handle your child not being invited to a party. And I think they're applicable tips for ourselves as well. You just have to listen to your heart and your gut instincts about how close you are to this person, and knowing that if you really, really value this friendship, then I don't think it hurts to have a really good, honest conversation about why your child wasn't invited. But if you're really not that close and it's a one-off, it's no biggie. You just move on and you smile, knowing that next time maybe your child doesn't invite their child because maybe they really just don't get along. And our kids should not have to cater to our wants and our social needs and desires to feel accepted or to make sure everybody that we know feels included. We shouldn't put that onto our kids. I think it's great when you're friends with somebody and your child knows their child and your child's like, Mama, I'm glad you're friends with that person, but I'm not really friends with that person, so I don't really feel like inviting that person. And you are not caretaking after your own feelings and not saying, okay, well, we need to because I'm friends with the mom. But you're able to say, you know what, sweetie, that's all good. You don't have to invite anybody you don't want to invite to your party for me, because I can have my own things with that person outside of you. And so we can have those separate relationships. Just because you're friends with the mom does not mean your children need to be friends, okay? They have their own personalities, they have their own wants, needs, and likes, and that's okay for you to have separate relationships. And that is so, so key here, and that's so important, because I feel like parents sometimes can get that a little mixed up, okay? But it's good to have boundaries. It's good that they can speak up for their wants, needs, and desires and not be afraid of how you're gonna take something, and not feel like our kids have to caretake our feelings. So those are the tips I'd like to add for today in response to this question today. I think it's a wonderful question. Also, if you haven't clicked like, subscribe yet, please click like, subscribe, or share this video if you find it helpful, if you think it might help somebody else, so that we can grow this channel together, so I get a chance to help more people just like you. And listen, if no one's told you yet today, I want you to know how special, how wonderful, how unique you are. There's nobody like you in the whole wide world, and I want you to have a rocking day, do something amazing, and I'll catch you on the next video.